Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Mondays with Mendy. I am here today to talk with all of you about a very important topic, and that is the topic of happiness. So hopefully you are feeling joyful today. I'm feeling joyful. Yesterday I was honored to participate in the grand opening of a 23,000 square foot Chabad Center at the University of Florida. It was a wonderful, wonderful occasion. As much as we hear about the struggles that Jewish life is facing in the 21st century, it's exciting and encouraging to see that there's still tremendous growth happening, despite of all of the research being done. So what better way? I wanted to start off with some happy news. Today we're going to talk about happiness, happy days, and why it is so difficult to sustain happiness over the course of a lifetime. And this is probably one of the biggest quandaries that we have as human beings, because everybody wants to be happy, and we try so hard to find happiness. That means oftentimes working diligently to provide for ourselves any creature comforts that we can think of. Getting ourselves a nicer car, a nicer home, better lifestyle, so that we can really find what we believe will be happiness. But unfortunately, as we know, all too often, all of these different comforts and luxuries rarely bring us a sustained measure of happiness. And the question is why? Why is it that? And how do we find sustained happiness and gratitude and satisfaction out of what we accomplish and achieve in our lives? Because if you look out amongst your friends and your family, and you find that those that struggle with finding satisfaction about themselves, their profession, etc., really also find a lot of difficulty sustaining happiness over the course of their lifetimes. So today we're going to talk about how we find happiness. Historically, one group of people, and specifically in the Jewish community, that have always been known and associated with happiness have been Hasidic Jews. And this is not a new occurrence. This is an old thing. In fact, going back 350 years ago, almost 400 years ago, the Baal Shem Tov, the first Hasidic rabbi, when he introduced his mode of service of God, he was known as the Freiliche, which means the happy one. Even though there was a lot of depth to his philosophy and how he encouraged people to serve God with sincerity and simplicity, he served God, he served his fellows, he lived his life in such a joyful manner that he was actually labeled as the Freiliche, the happy one. And his Hasidim, the Jewish people that followed his ideology, were known as the Freiliche, the happy ones. So why is it that the Hasidic world puts such an emphasis, so much importance on this concept of joy and happiness? What is unique about joy and happiness, and why is it such a pivotal part of life in general, and especially Jewish life? So this man, the Baal Shem Tov, he wrote the following. He said that the ability to be joyous by discerning the good and joyous within every experience is almost like a biblical commandment. He put it as a fundamental responsibility on every human being to be happy. Why? Because happiness comes from discerning the good within every experience. So therefore, he said, first of all, it's attainable. You might say to yourself, well, I don't know if I can truly be happy all the time. Maybe I can be happy 20% of the time, 30%. If I'm doing really well, 50% of the time. But can a person really attain true happiness on an ongoing basis? It might seem like a tall order. The Baal Shem Tov said no. If you're able to discern the good in every experience, then you always have the opportunity to be joyful. It was all about changing your perspective. And so therefore, he told his followers that this was your number one responsibility, to constantly find joy. And when Chabad was initiated, the Alter Rebbe in 1801 was ultimately incarcerated and imprisoned for spreading Jewish life throughout the communist Russia, the Soviet Union as known at the time. So through this entire experience, his followers always maintained a very joyful approach. And it upset people. Because to them it was almost like, why are you so happy? What possible reason can you have for your happiness? Are you in on a secret that the rest of the world doesn't know? Have you been drinking lately? What is it that constantly sustains this level of joy in your lifetimes? And it unnerves people because something that people can't understand can often be seen as a threat. But indeed, it is not a secret. And it is not attainable simply for the few, simply for the Hasidic Jews or the rabbis or the Orthodox or whatever moniker you want to use. This is a concept that can easily be applied to every human being in their life. And that is why it's a directive. The Torah would not issue a directive that was only plausible for a certain segment of the community. The directive, you should serve God. You should serve your faith and your spirituality. You should live your life with joy and jubilation. That is a directive for everyone. So it must be an attainable goal for everybody. Where do we see this idea of living life with true joy? Where is it expressed in the Jewish calendar? Well, this is the month. Of course, we're in the month of Adar, and Adar is the month that hosts the holiday of Purim. Purim being the celebration of the Jewish people commemorating the time when the Jews lived under the Persian Empire and the king Ahasuerus, listening to the wicked advice from his prime minister Haman, initially decreed that all the Jewish people should be annihilated. And of course, as we know the events of the story, through Esther and Mordecai, the decree was overturned and the Jewish people were spared. And it's a big celebration that happens every year during the month of Adar. But the power and the joy of this holiday is such that we are told that throughout the entire month we're supposed to increase in joy. So the entire Hebrew month of Adar, even before the holiday of Purim and after the holiday of Purim, we increase in joy. This year is a doubly joyful year because we have a leap year. What is a Jewish leap year? A Jewish leap year is an extra month added in the year, and it's an extra month of Adar. So right now we're in Adar 1. After we complete this, we'll begin Adar 2. Why do we have a leap year in the Jewish calendar, which happens 7 times over the course of a 19-year cycle? It is so that our calendar, which is lunar, will ultimately match up with the Gregorian calendar, which is primarily solar, so that our calendars will ultimately realign every 19 years. And that allows us to keep our festivals like Passover in season, because invariably the calendars would move further apart, and our holidays would find themselves in other seasons because the seasons, of course, are defined by the sun, by the solar calendar. So we have a leap year. We have an extra month of Adar. We have an extra opportunity for joy and celebration. Now, the Purim holiday is celebrated in the second month of Adar, which is when most of the celebrations are held in that second month, on the 14th day. However, interesting fact, the 14th day of the first month of Adar, 1 month prior to the celebration of Purim, is also a day of celebration and is referred to as Purim Katan, or Little Purim. So this would be held coming up at the end of the week on Friday. We are going to celebrate Little Purim, which is exactly 1 month prior to Purim, and is the 14th day of the first Adar. And in the second Adar, we'll actually celebrate the holiday. Now, how do you celebrate this holiday of Little Purim? Is it just a cute little name that we give to the day? Do we stop and think about our disguises and costumes or our Purim parties for the next month? What is a common form of celebration or recognition of this day, Little Purim? So some people say that you have to really have a major feast and you have to celebrate on this day, but that's a minority opinion. Most rabbis and commentaries do not agree with that. However, the common consensus is that one should eat a little bit more in recognition of the fact that it is a little bit of a joyous day. And you don't say sad prayers that you might say during a regular day. A regular prayer program has happier prayers and sad prayers. On a day like Little Purim, you don't include the sad prayers. So you show some minor distinctions between this day and every other day. But here's the interesting fact. Here's what's really cool. It says that one should add a little bit of festivities because he who has a cheerful heart always has a feast. And I'm quoting, and that's a quote from the book of Proverbs, Mishle, where it says, he who has a cheerful heart always has a feast. So the celebration of Little Purim is because a human being that is in a happy mode, has a cheerful heart, naturally feels compelled to celebrate as much as possible. And therefore, any opportunity for a celebration will be used accordingly. Little Purim, another chance to celebrate. This is the way the Code of Jewish Law says we should conduct ourselves on this day. So it's a Little Purim, gets a little bit of recognition with a little extra celebration. Now, holidays in general have themes. If you were to think about your favorite holiday, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Passover, which is the most celebrated Jewish holiday, you would find that each one of them have a certain theme that is expressed throughout the entire holiday. Passover is the theme of the Exodus, of course, and then you have Shavuot, which is held 7 weeks after Passover, which the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. So the concept, the theme of that holiday would be the giving of the Torah. These are the general themes. Even though these themes are intrinsically connected with those specific holidays, there are concepts that we talk about on a daily basis. In fact, it says that one is obligated to remember leaving Egypt, that the Jewish people left Egypt. Every day you should mention it. And the giving of the Torah, that God gave the Jews the Torah, of course, every day. It's in our prayers, it's in our studies. So what does it mean that you have holidays designated for a theme which is really recounted and recited every single day? What significance do the holidays carry? And the analogy is similar to someone who packs his bag. Someone who is going on a trip, they get all their stuff. We have a good friend who is a master bagpacker, Mr. M, we'll call him, to protect his identity. And this is a gentleman that can pack any trip, anywhere with a carry-on. Just absolute genius with packing his bags. But in any event, when you pack your bags, you put all the stuff into the bag that you're going to need for the duration of your trip. And then as you go through the trip, every day you take out the items you need for that specific day. Now, all of the items are there inside of the bag that you packed, but you don't use them all at once. You use them sporadically as you go through your trip. The same is with the themed holidays. Passover, for example, is the theme of the Exodus, from slavery to freedom. So we spend 7, 8 days sitting and dwelling on this concept, focusing on this theme to make sure that we truly understand it, we truly appreciate it, and when it becomes part and parcel of who we are, and we've got all of this focus and this energy and this understanding of the theme, then we move off to the rest of the year. And each day, we're able to understand the theme and celebrate the theme and remind ourselves of the theme with the focus that we gained over the Passover holiday. What we packed our bags with on Passover can then be enjoyed and expressed on a daily basis throughout the rest of the year. The same is for Shavuot and the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. You focus on what happened, what took place, what is the Torah, what is Sinai, why there, why now, etc., etc. And then you can go back to that experience, go back to that idea on a daily basis throughout the rest of the year. This is the goal that's set for why we have themed holidays. And the same could be said for non-Jewish holidays, national holidays like Thanksgiving. Everybody would agree that it's important to be thankful and show gratitude every single day. However, even in our country, we take 24 hours, that day of Thanksgiving, when we focus on being thankful. It's the entire message of the day. And by doing that in a focused manner on that day, we develop enough gratitude, enough appreciation for Thanksgiving that we can then be thankful on a daily basis throughout the rest of the year. So this could be said about all of the various themes that exist in Jewish life, the fundamental ones. We just recited how the fundamental theme of of one of the fundamental themes of Jewish celebration is joy. Right? It's important for a person to be joyful. So where do we see the expression of joy, the theme of joy celebrated on the Jewish calendar? What is the date for it? So one of the ideas, one of the suggestions always when you ask which holiday represents joy is Sukkot, the festival of the booths where we eat outdoors in a sukkah for 7 days, 6 days, 7 days. It says specifically about that holiday that it is the time of celebration. That's the way it's referred to in the Torah when it speaks about the holiday of Sukkot, the time of our celebration. You should take all the various kinds of produce and bring them together and dance. And in fact, in the temple, it was one of the most jubilant times was the holiday of Sukkot. They would have various ceremonies where they would pour water and wine, etc. in the afternoon, and people would dance and sing and celebrate all afternoon and all night during the holiday of Sukkot. But there's a problem with seeing Sukkot as the themed holiday for joy. And the reason is very simple. The joy, the happiness that you experience on Sukkot is happiness attributed to the performance of a mitzvah, a very important mitzvah. But at the end of the day, still something connected with a specific action that's taking place. Imagine if someone told you, I want you to be happy, Jack, every single day, just like you were happy by your wedding. Well, Jack would say, there's one problem. That on the day of my wedding, I got married. And every other day, I'm not getting married. So if you're attributing my joy to my getting married with my spouse, and that experience cannot be replicated on a daily basis, then how can I imagine that I will retain the same happiness that I had on that day? Doesn't compute. So therefore, to define our happiness on a daily basis as an expression of the happiness that we experience on Sukkot, there's a disconnect. The happiness on Sukkot is connected with a specific mitzvah taking place, and we don't have that mitzvah replicated on a daily basis throughout the rest of the year. What about Purim? Maybe we can say that Purim is the date to celebrate happiness. That's where we learn about being truly joyful. As we know that Purim, it's one of the mitzvot, one of the customs on Purim is to have a feast so that one should be truly happy. That's one of the customs on the holiday. And not only happy, but joyful to the point where one can no longer recognize the difference between the villain of the holiday, Haman, and the hero of the holiday, Mordecai. That's the extent of a person's happiness on that day. So that's one option. And the problem with that, there are a couple of problems with seeing Purim as the themed holiday for joy, because, first of all, there are many different mitzvot. There are 4 different mitzvot to celebrate the holiday of Purim, giving gifts of food and money to poor people, reading the story. And the celebration, the feast, is only one of the 4 mitzvot. So can you really say that the holiday is all about joy? Maybe not. And in addition to that, at the end of the day, the joy on Purim is associated with the specific mitzvah of Purim. It is a mitzvah to have a feast. So again, you could make the argument that during the rest of the year, when it's not a mitzvah, when it's not a directive and a tradition to have a feast and have a party, why then would you find joy? Why then would you find happiness simply reminiscent of the Purim holiday? Again, there's a disconnect. That was a holiday attributed to a specific custom and tradition, and this is just a regular day without any special custom and tradition. So we're stuck trying to find a source for inspiration, a source for happiness on a daily basis. Where's the holiday that packs our bags for happiness? There's an amazing perspective that a human being is capable of having. An amazing perspective. Yet, it is up to each and every one of us to choose to wear the right glasses. Because if you put on the wrong glasses and you choose to have a different perspective in life, it completely alters the way you see the world around you. Without my glasses, I see nothing. If I decide to put on sunglasses that are tinted, I see brown, I see black, I see blue. Everything around me is automatically redefined by the glasses that I wear, by the perspective I choose to accommodate. So what is the perspective for joy and happiness that a human being is capable of? Well, how can they find that perspective? You're right, if it's based purely on the fact that we have a tradition to be happy, we have a mitzvah to be happy, we have a commandment to be happy, we have a holiday that tells us we have to be happy, if that's the only initiation for happiness, then on a regular day, you're stuck. However, if you choose a different perspective, if you choose to take the perspective of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev. Berdichev is a small town about 45 minutes to an hour away from Zhytomyr, probably about 4 hours away from Kharkov in the Ukraine. It is a town that I visited. And Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev was known as an amazing scholar, teacher, and a master of discipline, of life, a real amazing individual. So Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev said the following. He was once found early in the morning by his students, dancing and singing. And it was before morning prayers, before breakfast, before anything, early in the morning. So the students came up to him and they said, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, why are you so happy? Why are you so joyful? It's so early in the morning. What could possibly have happened already today that could bring you such joy and happiness that you would be dancing and singing? So he said, I woke up in the morning and I recognized that God put me here on earth. And I said, there's a morning prayer where we say, thank you, God, for giving me life and renewing my existence here on earth with the trust that I'm going to do something great today. And when I said that prayer, I recognized and I realized that I could not have had this day. I could have not been created today. I could have been created as someone that doesn't have faith, that doesn't have spirituality in their life. So the mere fact that I was created today, I am alive, and I have faith, and I have the opportunity for spiritual connection, that in and of itself gives me great joy. I don't need anything else. That's why I'm dancing here today. So if you choose to wear the glasses, the perspective of I have life, I have spirituality, I have depth to who I am, and the opportunity to bring about amazing change here on earth. That in and of itself should make me happy. That should make me joyful, if I choose to have that perspective. And the value of developing that perspective, though it may not come to you in an instant, the value of developing that perspective is that these glasses are with you wherever you go. Wherever you look, whatever the situation will be, it will be colored by this perspective. No matter how difficult, how tragic, how calamitous it might be, you will always have this perspective of how fortunate I am to be here on earth with an opportunity to bring about transformation, with an opportunity to connect to something greater than myself, right? To see a deeper reality within this existence. How fortunate am I to have all of those things? And now that I recognize that great fortune, now I can see where the opportunity lies in this specific instance. Again, no matter how great the tragedy may be. This is not an external joy. Because oftentimes we find happiness through external triggers. A new car triggers happiness. A new dress, a new piece of jewelry, a new home, a new dish, a new restaurant. These are all external triggers. That sometimes can work, but unfortunately, as we go through life, we get bored. So the triggers become greater and bigger and require more money and more time, more resources, more energy. It's a constant battle to find happiness because the same trigger rarely will work over time. And oftentimes, we won't have the same trigger available. You can't buy the new car. You can't get this. You can't get that. So therefore, you're stuck. How do you find happiness if you don't have an external trigger? The answer is it has to come internally. That is where you find consistent, sustained happiness through an internal trigger. If you internally can initiate happiness, it's with you wherever you may go, whatever you may do in life. And that's what Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev was saying. It's internal. I woke up this morning, nothing happened to me. No external impressions have happened up to this point. But internally, I recognize here I am on earth with an opportunity to do good, to be productive. I have the great fortune of faith, great fortune of spirituality in my life, and for that alone, I am grateful, I am happy. You have a husband and wife, right? Some of you are married. I'm fortunate enough to be married to a wonderful woman, 3 beautiful children. And of course, everyone has those special days, right? Our anniversary, our wedding, when we go on vacation together. When you're in those moments, you always feel romantic. You do. The moment itself brings about a feeling of romance. You feel a greater sense of connection. And you celebrate that. You're happy about it. However, what happens if during the week you show up with a bouquet of flowers or a piece of jewelry or just a card that you stopped off and bought or an extra hug or a peck on the cheek? What's the value then? Well, I'll tell you what the value then is. The value then is infinitely more and greater than the value of your romantic expression on those specific dates. Why? Because those dates are an expected practice. Those dates are defined as opportunities when we express happiness because this is the way it's done. This is what custom and tradition requires of us. It's your birthday, you get a gift. It's your anniversary, you go out for dinner. It's a vacation, we spend more time with one another. But on the moments that are not required of us, that have no external obligation, no external trigger, but rather an internal inspiration that motivates us to reach out and cherish the things that we have in our lives, like our spouse or our children. When we do that, we show that it's a true inner connection that exists and not something based purely on external triggers. I want to conclude with a story. Because when we talk about happiness and we talk about external triggers and internal triggers, there's also a sense of fear. Fear that people might view us in a strange way for being so happy. Do we really want to get labeled as the happy guy or the happy girl? So as I mentioned, the Baal Shem Tov, the first Hasidic rabbi, was big on happiness. And it was known that he and his disciples, his students, would often simply start dancing. They would talk about an idea or study something together, and instantly the feeling of joy inspired them to get up and start dancing and chanting a Hasidic melody, which, by the way, most of these melodies didn't have words. They were expressions of the soul, of the heart. They weren't contained in words. A chant, a melody that they sang together. And there was once a gentleman that came up to the Baal Shem Tov, and he said, I don't understand. Why are you dancing? What's going on? It looks strange. It looks unhealthy for a person to be happy so much of the time. So Baal Shem Tov told the man this story. He said, once a musician came to town, a really tremendous musician, was so talented, and he started playing for the town people. On the street corner, slowly, 5 people, 10 people, the whole town eventually heard the music. They came out, and it was so wonderfully inspiring, it was infectious, that everybody started to move. And they started to move as one group, and they were dancing, and everybody was getting into the spirit and the vibe, and it was one communal town celebration. Everybody moving to the beat of the music. Along came to the town a deaf person. A person who unfortunately was not able to hear. And the deaf person looks out and he sees all of the people of the town standing together in the town square, dancing and jumping and moving together and swaying. And he turns over to one of the people and he says, "Are you people all insane? What are you doing?" And of course the answer is very simple. The deaf person didn't have the capacity to see and understand what had inspired all of these people of the town to dance. Baal Shem Tov then turned to the man and said, we have been fortunate enough that we are sensitized to the beauty that exists in life, in our personal life, and in life all around us. And it is based on that sensitivity, based on that beauty that we see and we feel, that we are joyous. Should we stop dancing because someone else is desensitized because someone else lacks that sensitivity to appreciate what they have in their own life and in the world that exists around them? Of course not. So when you feel that the rest of the world is not as clued in as you are, and by you expressing joy, even in difficult circumstances, even in tragic circumstances, by you expressing joy in those moments, you'll be seen as an outcast, you'll be seen as a freak, you'll be seen as someone off the deep end. Remember that your joy isn't made out of mockery. Your joy is something much deeper. Your joy comes from an inner appreciation for who you are, what you're here, what you can achieve today in this moment. And that alone inspires you to be joyful, regardless of the circumstances and the situation. And if another person, unfortunately, has not yet been given the sensitivity to see the joy that you have, don't feel upset, don't feel afraid or intimidated by it. Feel compassion and help that person to become as sensitive to the beauty of life as you can. And this is what this day of Purim Katan, this little Purim, celebrates and recognizes for each and every one of us, because it's not a real holiday. It's not. There's no obligation to celebrate on this day. There's no commandment. There's no mitzvah. No, it's a little Purim. It's a day when you stop and say, you know what? A month from now, I'm going to be celebrating a big Jewish holiday, and it's going to be lots of fun and festivity and so on. But today is just a regular day. It's a month away. So, you know what? Today, just for the heck of it, I am going to celebrate. I am going to be joyful, especially joyful today, because for no reason apart from the fact that I'm alive, I'm here on earth, I've been given the great fortune of faith, I've been given the great fortune to see a spiritual world that exists and the power to transform the world around me. That alone gives me great joy. And that is a theme you can carry from the day of Little Purim to every single day of your life, whether it's a holiday, whether it's Shabbat, or whether it's your average Tuesday. It doesn't matter, because that's an internal trigger you will always have with you and will always come as a resource to you in your life. So I hope and pray that you find true happiness on a daily basis, and that is something you carry with you through the rest of your life. Of course, if you got any questions, comments, please feel free to email them to me at askmendy@gmail.com, askmendy@gmail.com, and check out our website for all of our upcoming events and programs at ChabadSouthTampa.com. And have a wonderful little Purim and a great rest of the day. How are you, Alex?
Good. How are you?
Wonderful.
You gonna upload this right away?
I'm going to do it right now.
Okay. Which site do you use to upload it? Or you just?
It goes onto YouTube.
It goes right onto YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we have a channel.
Right. So it's
and everything is. Yeah. So it's not, well, there's an extra step there, I should say, actually, because I use Ustream